Welcome back to another day of the Red Hawk Media Virtual Academy, and we're back to talk about the follow-up to all of the classes that we looked at yesterday. Of course, during this time, ask questions, check in with me, feel free to drop a comment, all of that good stuff. That's a good way for me to know if anybody's actually watching. I know a lot of people watched the video after the fact yesterday, and that was great. But today, during our time, we're going to be covering more like walkthrough material in some of the different programs that we've got. So, to begin with, we're going to be taking a look at digital media, and that's Digital Media 2. And right now in Digital Media 2, yesterday we went through downloading Unity. And with that download, we grabbed the standard assets asset as well from the asset store in Unity, downloaded that, and then we should be all ready to go for today's lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up here and start walking you through some of the details that are related to your assignment. Let's start by bringing up Unity. So I'm going to bring that up, switch over to this. There we go. All right, and here we are in Unity at this point. And I'm just going to double check that that's actually going. Yep, we're all good. All right, so in Unity, we're putting together our level. We're going to start from like the basics. The nice thing about grabbing the standard asset package is that we have all these pre-made things that are in there that will help us learn what's going on in Unity. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to head to the standard assets. So now any files that you have related to your project are down in your project tab. And this project tab will show anything, any of the folders that you create, any of that stuff. And you can see that there's the standard assets that we downloaded yesterday. Now to begin with, we're going to start off in the 2D folder, so I'm just going to open that. And in here, we can look at prefabs. And you can see all this stuff that has been pre-made for us here. Okay, all these different things. We've got a character, we've got a collision slider, all this different stuff. And right now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense here, but it will in a little bit. We're going to open a practice scene to kind of see what what all these prefabs are about, and then we'll come back to this folder. So we're going to start by getting out of 2D. We're going to go to, let's see here, I think we are in 2D actually, and I got to see where we're at here. Prefabs, environment, characters, prototyping, scenes, sample scenes, third person. I'm just looking for the exact area where we've got all this stuff in here. And there's quite a few folders to begin with. Don't let that overwhelm you here. If we go into scenes, from sample scenes, here we go. This is where we want to be. So again, that's the sample scenes folder. And then inside of there, we've got the scenes folder. And then the very first thing that's in there is a 2D character scene. And this will open up a pre-made scene that'll give us lots of stuff to work with here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on that scene. And don't save. All right. And there we go. So now we've got this starting scene that has been created for us. You can see in our setting here, and I'm going to make things look probably a little bit more like they were default in yours. So there are 3 tabs here that we're going to be working with. Okay, there's the scene tab, which is where we build everything. There was the asset store that we went to yesterday. And then there's the game tab, which shows you exactly what it's going to look like in the game view. Okay, and this is pretty similar to Scratch and any other programs that you've used for creating any games. There's usually these different stages that you can build and assemble things in. We're going to go back to the scene tab. We're going to take a look at the hierarchy here. And in the hierarchy, you can see that there's a 2D character, there's crates, there's background, there's all this different stuff that's in here. This is everything that's in the scene right now. So that's what we were talking about yesterday when I was kind of giving you the tour. These are all the items that are in here. Now, if I select any of the items, let's say I select 2D character, okay, you can see automatically that it highlights the 2D character in here. Okay, and that allows me to know where they are, make changes to them, and all that stuff. So one of the first changes I might want to make actually is to move my character around. At the top, we've got a variety of different tools that we can work with here. So we're going to take a look up here, and we've got the move tool is probably the biggest one that we're going to start with here. And then the hand tool actually just slides things around on your stage. We've got the rotate tool, we've got a scale tool, and then we've got this rectangle tool, which is handy for just kind of like resizing text and things like that. Let's start with the move tool. When I click on that, right away, you will see that I've got some arrows here with which to move my character. So I can drag him up, drop him up here, take this robot character and drag them all over here. If I grab the little box here, I can go ahead and just drag this around anywhere that I want and move that fairly quickly. Now, go ahead and drop them up here, and from there, we've made our first change. We're going to go ahead and hit play to test this out. Now, when I hit play, it's going to switch over to the game tab. What I like to do, because it just helps with the testing, and if you've got the screen real estate, it's not a bad idea. I usually take the game tab and drag it over to the side like this so that I can see both the scene and the game at the same time. That way I can make changes over here and immediately see the changes in the game view, which is pretty handy. And we don't really need the standard asset stuff to be taking up so much space, so I size that down, and this just kind of gets things set up. This is where I can grab that hand tool and I can move everything down here so it's all set up to view. And a lot of this is just learning the framework and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit play, and we are now in the scene, and using the arrow keys or WASD, I can navigate around, spacebar for jump. You can see that my character has some pretty basic animation. We can run, I think C for crouch maybe it's shift, control, there it is, control. And then if I use WASD, you can crouch and walk, okay? And I can interact with these crates, and I can even fall off. And then it takes him away from the scene, okay? So that's what we call a kill zone. If you fall off, you're gone, okay? And then to restart the scene, I hit the play button at the top again. So I'm gonna go up, hit the play button so I'm no longer in play mode, and then I would start this again and come right back in, and it starts where we left off. And now I can go ahead and move things around and interact, do all that stuff. There's not a whole lot that you can really do in this scene, but what it does is it allows you to see some of the prefabs that we're going to be working with, and it shows you also how your character kind of interacts with them. Okay, the physics, the basic stuff like that. So that way we can, move around here. All right, so let's go ahead and kill them off, and there we go. Now, if we want to break this down into some more specific parts, I already showed you the character. And to show you another aspect of Unity, I select my character. And now you'll see over on the far right side here with the character selected, this is the Inspector tab. And you're going to be using this the most. This is where you see all your settings. This is where you see whatever you've got selected. You'll see the transform for where the character is, sprite renderer. Now this is my sprite for this particular character, and you don't want to mess with any of this right here, so I'm just going to collapse this down. The animator, we're not going to touch that right now. The circle collider might be of interest to you though. We have a circle collider, and that circle collider is on the feet of the character. So if I zoom in on my character here, you can see there's the circle collider. And that allows me to go up angles, it allows me to go down angles, and he's always got contact with the ground because of that circle collider. All right, and it causes an actual collision with the platforms, just so that's clear. You'll see that there's also a 2D box collider that's on here for the main body. So when I run into walls sideways and that, or any of the crates, anything like that, we have interaction with it. Okay, other things that are on our character, if we look over here. Now we're done with the circle collider, so we'll collapse that down. Rigid body. Now the rigid body adds physics to your character so that they experience gravity, so that things like velocity and all that can be measured. And it allows you to add forces to your character, and it allows like the crates to actually have simulated physics. We're going to collapse that down. We're not going to touch that. You can see some scripts are on here. We're not going to get into the scripts a whole lot right now, but we can take a look at something that's kind of fun. We're going to go ahead and hit play. And this is something else that you can do while you're in game mode here. I'm going to hit play, and I can go into my scripts here while I'm playing. And we can see this is what he runs like right now. Okay? And this is what he jumps like. And I can even measure about almost a whole grid and a half that he can jump. Now if I come over here and I take my max speed and jack that up to, jack that up to 20 here, and then click back into my game window, and now I move, you can see he's quite a bit faster. So this is where you can tweak a few of the little game variables that relate directly to the gameplay. If I come in here and take the jump force, and I take that to like maybe 1500, let's see what that's like. Click back into my game window, and then jump, and you can see now the jump is substantially more. Okay, so I can create different situations for the game using this stuff. Now, that's just the character, and that gives you a quick tour. I'm going to hop out of play mode. You shouldn't really make a whole lot of changes. In play mode, making changes is a great way to like test stuff, but if you want the changes to be permanent, it's better that you don't be in play mode, make the changes, and they're more likely to stay. Sometimes you make changes in play mode, and this is what happens actually. You can see that my variables went right back to where they were by default. So that max speed is back to 10 instead of 20. This is no longer 1500. So that's the problem with doing things in play mode, but it is a great way to kind of test stuff to see how it works. All right, now, next part of all this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at the crates so that we understand what all is in the crates and what's going on there. We've got a number of different crates. Now, the way this is organized is we have an empty object here that has a bunch of stuff in it. Think of it like almost as a folder. So I can drop this down, and inside of that folder I can see there's a bunch of crates that are in here. And if I click on the different crates within my scene, and I'll zoom out so that we can kind of see this, as I go, let's go down here. You can see there's that crate, the move tool just came up on it. You can see the move tool on all these different crates. Now any of these crates, same thing, if I click on this and I go over to the side here in the inspector, you can see they've got very basic things here. They got a sprite renderer, which shows that pink sprite, box collider, which creates physics, and then we've got a rigid body, box collider, which causes collision. There's even a physics material on here that allows the crates to bounce a little bit. We've got the rigid body, which is the physics, and that's pretty much it. So that's the crates. Let's take a look at the background. It's pretty standard. There's not much to the background other than it's all these navy blue grids, okay? And they're all slapped together so that they create this ginormous background, okay? Not gonna mess with that. Platforms. Now again, it's a folder, got a bunch of platforms that are inside of it. And when you select a platform, you'll see roughly where it is in the scene. So here's the platform that's in question. And now I'm just using my, my scroller on my mouse here to go in and out for the zoom. And if I use right click, I can actually take this and drag that so that I can maneuver around to the scene to different places. This is stuff that is kind of frustrating to begin with until you get used to it. So again, scrolling in and out to zoom, right click to drag this around. And then of course, if I wanted to move this platform, you can see I've got that move tool. Now Command Z works in here as well. I hit Command Z, it's right back to where it was. So just like our Photoshop quick keys, Command Z takes us back one step. Now in the platform, you'll see some similar stuff. The platform is a prefab that's made up of a bunch of things, so I drop that down. And you can see that there's all these white sprites that are in here that put it together. You can see that there's a collider, an overall collider. So one collider for all of those sprites, so that you don't have a bunch of little ones that are all different and jagged and your character gets caught on them while they're running. And then there is a slider that's on here, and that's just basically a collider that's on the end that allows the character to slip past the platforms as they're jumping. So instead of jumping into the side and sticking, they actually jump and kind of slide off of the sides. So that's a pretty common thing on a platformer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hop out of here, hop out of there. And the last thing that I'll show you is there is a kill zone. If I double click on any of the items in my hierarchy, it will automatically zoom in on whatever the object is. So I'm going to go out. Here's my kill zone. Now it doesn't look like much, but when I look over in the inspector, you can see that there is a box collider on it. and then there's this restarter script. Okay, now the box collider is set up so that it covers the whole bottom of the level. And anytime, and it's this green box, which is kind of hard to see here. If I take the kill zone itself and I move it down, you can see there's the green box that I'm talking about. Anytime my character comes in contact with this, it destroys the character and restarts the scene. Okay, so that's the basics of that. And then I have this multi-purpose camera rig that's in here, and that just follows my character around as I move through the scene. Okay, so now I know I've got all of these different things that are in here. I kind of see how they work. Now is a great time for me to create my own scene. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm not going to do this in this particular folder here. We'll show you how this is going to work. And I'm going to move my notes here so I can see what's going on. Okay, I'm going to hop down, and I'm going to get down into my assets here, and I'm going to create, because I don't think it's created by default here, if there isn't a scenes folder that's already created outside of all these things, we're going to create that now so that we're all organized. And I've been jumping back and forth between Digital Media 2 and game design using this, so I want to make sure that you have the same stuff that I have here. Now for the scenes folder, if you need to create that, easy way to do that is we can go to the assets, we can right click on it, we can go to create, and then we can create all these different things in here. The one we're looking for is folder, and then you can go ahead and click on that and create your scene folder. Now once you've got your scene folder, we're going to hop into that actual scenes folder, and we're going to create a new one, a new scene. So I'm going to just go ahead and left click, create, and then new scene here. And we're going to call this practice so that we can see what's going on here. Practice, enter. And now that we've got that practice scene, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So I'm going to double click. Now, here's where switching between scenes gets a little bit tricky. If there was something that I really wanted to save on this scene, I would go up and I would save it right now. We're not worried about this. We're going to keep the scene exactly as is so we can always come back to it as a reference point here. So I'm just going to double click on practice, and it's going to say, hey, you made these changes, and I'm not going to worry about saving them. Okay, and now I'm over to this new scene, which you can tell has absolutely nothing in it. And this is where you come in, this is where your assignment is. You're going to start dragging items into the scene to build it out. So we're going to go back to that first folder that we looked at here. And again, just as we're learning the navigation here, we're going to go down to our project area. We're going to go into standard assets, go into 2D, and then in the 2D folder, we're looking at the prefabs. Now the prefabs have been all put together for us with all of the items already on them. So we'll get the two most essential things in here, and then I'll let you run from there. And then it's time to move on to the other classes. So first thing, you can see that there's a character, the robot boy. We're going to go ahead and drag the character into our hierarchy. We're going to do one other thing to that character real quick. With the character still selected, I'm going to come over to my inspector. And just to make sure that everything starts at 0, 0, 0, I'm going to go to the transform of that character, and I'm going to go to the little cog here, and I'm going to go to reset. And now you can see all zeros all the way across. Everything is lined up perfectly. All right, so now we got a character in there. Let's go ahead and grab a platform. Let's grab, it doesn't matter which one we grab, but we're going to grab one of them, drag it in here. I'm going to do the same thing to the platform, so it's roughly in the same area as the player. I'm going to go reset on the transform. Okay, and now if I double click on my character, it zooms in nicely on him so that I can find him quickly. And now with the move tool, I'm just going to take my character, move them up so that they are above everything here that's going on. And I can see over in my game window what's going on. I hit play. And now my character is in there. My character can always already run and jump and crouch, whichever button that was. There it is. Oh, not that one, right? And crouch and all that stuff. So now I can interact. From here, what I want to do is I want to start building my layer out. Now, a couple quick tips so that we can get some organization, because you're going to find out things like pile up in your hierarchy in a hurry. Like they just start stacking up and it gets a little out of control. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some organization in here just to keep track of everything. The first thing that we'll do is we'll come in here and we're going to right click and we're going to create an empty. Think of an empty as like just a placeholder or a folder or just an empty object. Create that, and this game object we're going to retitle, and we're going to call it platforms. Boom. We're going to make sure that it's not inside of anything. So like you can see right now, that thing that I created is actually part of my Robot Boy character. I don't want that. So I want to grab that and drag it outside here and put it down here so it's on its own layer. Okay, what we call this is the parent object, and then these are child objects connected to that parent object. Okay, and they all relate together as one large object. So just a little bit of lingo there. Now in this platform one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to very quickly make sure that that is zeroed out too. Reset. Boom, zeros. And then I'm going to take my platform and drag that in there. So now I'm getting a little organized here. So that way if I go like this and I add on this funky platform, which I can also drag things into my scene here. And the scene is infinitely scrollable, so I can like zoom out and zoom out and zoom out, and you can see how the stage could get pretty big. All right, and I'm gonna go over here and put this up here and then snap that together as closely as possible. Now if I want to be really precise, I can go to the transform of this object, get the Y variable, copy that right on here so that they're exactly the same level, which I would recommend doing because it just makes everything run a little bit smoother. So if I go over here to this platform and I grab the Y variable, which it's actually at 0 right now, take my new platform ramp, make sure that my Y is at 0, and now you can see the two of them are perfectly matched up. Okay, zoom back out so we can see what's going on. Now I'm going to take that platform ramp that I just dragged in, add that into my platforms folder, and I can always collapse that folder down so it makes things easier to operate in the future. And I go ahead and I hit play because it's important to kind of test this stuff out, and it's kind of fun. So I hop in here. Oh, you can see there's a little bit of a gap in there, so I have to put that a little bit closer together. And now we run into our first problem. Now over on the left side, you can see, I can see where I'm going for a little while, and then I run out of space. And on the game side, it's not following at all. Now, I don't know if you remember, but from the sample scene that we had this multi-purpose camera rig. And what that did is it actually followed our character so that we could build a bigger, better level. So we're going to go ahead and add that on, and then I'm going to cut you loose, promise. Okay, so I'm going to come back here, and now I gotta find this thing. This is gonna be interesting. So I'm gonna come back down to my assets because I know that there's one made for us here, and I don't see anything in here that relates to cameras, but the next folder down is cameras, and then you can see that there's a prefabs folder in there. Okay, and then if I remember, I think it was a multi-purpose rig. Let's go ahead and select that, and it tells me the full name down here so I can make sure I've got the right one. Okay, multi-purpose rig, and I'm going to drag that out here into my scene or into my hierarchy. Okay, and you can see the camera is now popped up, and it changes the look of my game a little bit over here. Okay, we'll talk about that in future episodes here, but now I do want this camera to follow my character, and I think it's already set up by default here. So I'm gonna, with my camera selected, I'm gonna look at what's going on over here. It says auto cam, and it says that it is going to automatically target my character Robot Boy. So awesome. That looks like it's all set. Let's test it out. We'll hop in here. Boom, there's the camera. Oh, it's following over there. It is not showing up in my actual thing here. I may have to connect it to my main camera. Let's see how that works. Now, this is a great time that if we don't know how something works, we go ahead, let's go ahead and go through this so that we know we're not losing anything. We can go up to File, and we can save this scene. Okay, so practice scene in the scenes folder is all saved. We're also going to go ahead, because this is all one project, we're going to go save project. And now I'm going to come back down to my area down here for my scenes, and I'm going to hop into that sample scenes, And let's go into, let's see here, where was that at? Sample scenes, scenes, yep, sample scenes, and go into 2D character. And this is where I can look at that multi-purpose camera rig, and I can see, okay, what am I missing here? Okay, and I look at the inspector over here, and you can see that it's the 2D character transform. I may need to drag my character in there to make sure that it's updated. And then let's see if there's anything funky on... And actually, there's no main camera that's in here either. Yes, that could be the other problem. Okay, so now we've got some ideas of what to solve. We're not saving anything here, so I'm going to go back down to my scenes folder. And this is a little bit of the troubleshooting that we go through to make sure that we understand what's happening with all these different items. It's just good problem solving. So we're going to go back to our practice scene. And now I'm going to go to the main camera, which is automatically created anytime you create a scene. And I'm going to delete that. Right click and delete. All right, now the other thing I'm going to double check here is that it says character robot boy. I'm going to make sure that it has this character in there. So I literally grabbed the character. I just click and drag all in one click here and then drag that in there. And now from there, let's see if we are getting what we want. Ah, there we go. And you can see now it keeps them centered. It's got a little bit of inertia to it, so it actually smoothly follows. Hey, not too bad. Okay, so at this point, you know how to save your scene, you know how to drag different items in, you know how to kind of troubleshoot back and forth so you can look at that other scene and not lose anything on this scene. When it's all said and done, take a look at Schoology and make sure that you know exactly what's going on there as far as what you need to turn in. You are going to create a level, you will be turning it in, check the details there. And I'm going to hop out of this, and that's going to wrap it up for digital media too. Okay, let me get out of here, and there we go. And minimize, and sorry, I'm talking to myself. That's odd, especially in your basement, locked away, quarantine. It has only been 2 days, I promise. All right, and now we're going to switch over to web design. And in web design, we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few resources here that are going to help you out. We talked about wireframing yesterday. There was an assignment on Schoology for you, and in that assignment, basically it showed some examples of how to wireframe, how to generate ideas for wireframing, and how to do it kind of quickly so that you get a variety of different things. And on top of that, you had your conversation with me about what the Red Hawk Media site needs were, and you want to incorporate those. Now, we want to transition from our wireframe into Photoshop here. And the wireframe is nice to gather ideas and get a layout and all that, and hopefully you've turned that in on Schoology. But now we're going to go over to Photoshop, and we're going to take a look at, okay, we need to create a mock-up, and the mock-up is definitely more visual, and it's a great way to communicate with your clients. And it's also before, it's pre-coding, so it's another way to make sure that you're on the same exact page as your clients so that you don't have any long periods of time that you put in on a website and then come to find out your client really doesn't like it. So it's another form of communicating like the overall vision for the project, which is super important. So now from here, I've got some websites that are on Schoology that will be great resources. Here's one of them. Let me bring this up and let me maximize this and head on over here. And this is one of the links that's included in here. And you can see most of us that had the conversation about the needs for the Red Hawk Media page, we talked about a splash page, not a landing page, a splash page. Now, a landing page, as we discussed, is all about like that first contact. You make communication, you get information, you exchange info so that for future contact, basically, so you can keep people coming back. Now the splash page is what it sounds like. It is splashy. It is gets your attention, and it's a great lead into a site. Now these are all different examples of splash pages, and again this link is in Schoology, so you'll be able to check it out. And as I scroll down, I might get some different ideas for splash pages that I could retrofit to Red Hawk Media. Again, we're generating ideas, we're getting visuals for everything that's going on here, and it gives us a pretty good idea of what we need to create moving forward. Now, there's a couple of these that I like. And one of them is this one, because we talked about a simple splash page that people can kind of pick their path. Are you a student? Are you community? Are you just somebody that's coming to the site for information? Whatever it may be, this might be a great way to kind of break that up. So I'm going to do this. Before I go on, I'm going to go ahead and Command-Shift-4 this. And I think I already did, so just to double check though, Command-Shift-4. And I'm going to go ahead and get a quick screenshot of this and be pretty accurate here, because the more accurate you are here, the better your chances are that it's going to fit your template. Now, I've got a screenshot of that. I'm going to go ahead and hop out of here. Okay. And once I'm out of here, I'm going to transition over to Photoshop. And inside of Photoshop now, I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. And in this document, the beauty is Photoshop is all set up for web design as well. So we can use some of the pre-made things that are in here. And I double check to make sure that the sizes are current and up to date, and they really are. They're really close. So we're going to use that. So File, New. And this is, again, the beginning of our mock-up. We have all these tabs in the new thing. Okay, and one of them that's up here is Web. So I'm going to go to that. And then you can see it's got a variety of different things and purposes. And then it's also got some templates that are down here that give you an idea. And some of these are free and some of them are not free. And the big thing is just finding something that kind of fits. I'm not really seeing it right now because we're talking splash page right now. So I'm going to go back up and I'm just going to use the empty template of web most common. And this is really the most common web size that is being used right now. It's really handy for being resized to mobile. And it's really handy for a full-size website all the way up to viewing it on a large desktop. So we're going to go ahead and create that. And once we're in here, you'll see that we're on Artboard 1, which is a nice little folder that's been created for us. And this is where we're going to utilize that screenshot. So I'm going to go ahead, drag this over a little bit, see if I can find that screenshot. There it is. And I'm going to bring that right in here. And then I'm going to resize it. Now, if you're new to the new Photoshop, which all of us are because we're on a Photoshop that was like 100 years old, and if you're new, you don't have to hold Shift anymore. So I'm actually going to transform this magically without holding Shift, which is nice but weird if you're used to holding Shift for everything. Now you can see that our website was a slightly different size, which is okay. And I'm just going to leave this. I'm probably going to center it in here. And then we've got our guides right here. And let's make sure this is all the way out to the edge here. And pretty good. Starting template. Okay, now obviously I don't want to leave this like this, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding in some background here. I'm going to drag this down here. I'm going to switch up my background color so that it's black. Okay, and then a little bit of Alt-Delete magic, ba-boom. And then I've got that background. Let's drag it back down to the bottom here. Oop, Command-Z. Command-Z. All right, and make sure that I have the actual background selected here as I do this. And then Alt-Delete. And then we've got that screenshot. Let's put that down here. There we go. All right, so now in here, we can see all the different stuff that's going on. And now I can start going in and creating a little bit of what I think is going to work for Red Hawk Media. So this is just a guide. That's all it is. And this isn't necessarily the guide. Look for the one that you think will serve the purposes based on our conversation. Come in here, create this. Now there is information that's on Schoology for you. I've got that link to the splash pages. I've also got some examples of other splash pages that are included on there. One other thing that I would show you that I think will be very worthwhile for you because you'll need access to all this. Let's bring up Schoology real quick so you can take a look. And then in Schoology, go to our courses, web design. Let me put this up full sleeves. And now from here in web design, you can see that we've got the Red Hawk Media Site folder. I'm also posting each day of the Virtual Academy on here. So instead of going to YouTube, you can reference it from here. And then for this, you can see there's the one from Wireframing yesterday talking about that video. And I've got splash page examples, website mock-up assignment, which explains your next steps of what you need to do, and this is where you'll be turning it in. And then there's RHM branding folder, which if you look in here, you'll see there is a brand standards guide for Milton branding. Now we have to follow this branding guide to some extent so that we are in so that we're basically along the same lines as Milton. We can't take their logos and change them up. We can't take their colors and change them up. We have to fit to the branding standards. So make sure you take a look at this PDF. It gives you everything from the logos to the colors, like the RGB numbers, all of that stuff. It'll walk you through that. Here's a Photoshop document that's got all the Red Hawk logos in it, and then some other Photoshop things here that'll be useful, like the badge, the RHM badge, all of that stuff. And some of them are PNGs and some of them are PSDs. So if you need to go in and kind of, resize those for the different purposes. Now this one I still have to add the pictures into, but I will have a variety of different pictures that'll be plugging into this folder, and that'll give you a number of pictures that you can use on the site. And they're fairly big pictures, fairly quality. You may have to Photoshop them a little bit to get them to fit, but that's kind of the idea. That's web design. I'm going to wrap it up there, and then I'm going to switch over. Where we go now? We're heading over to game design. Okay, excellent. Let me get out of here. Thank you. And in game design, let me switch over here. Perfect. Minimize all that, and throw that up there. Okay, for those of you accessing the video, hopefully those titles are helping. If you got any other suggestions, just let me know, because that'll just help me improve this whole process here. For game design, I had a question that I think is relevant to pretty much everybody in game design. We talked yesterday about loading levels and getting from level 1 to level 2 and back and so on and so forth. A lot of you, excuse me, a lot of you are creating platformer games, and some of you are using kill zones, some of you are using reset boxes, and some of you are using checkpoints. And all of those things can kind of be interchangeable, and they can be a little bit crazy. So I want to make sure that you've got all the stuff that you need to actually do that, and walk you through an example. And they're not on Schoology right now, but I'm going to take the 4 scripts that I'm going to reference today, and I'm going to put those on Schoology so you can grab those and then use this video to kind of follow the implementation of those, so you can see the ins and outs of all that. Let's go ahead and switch over to Unity. And let's see here, Unity, boom. All right, this one's for you, Gus. This one's for you. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I created a level just for Gus. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and save the scene. He asked about, hey, he was having problems with his character being destroyed by the kill zone. And then when his character was coming back, it didn't have half of the scripts on it. It was missing a bunch of stuff, so this is kind of a workaround on all of that, and probably the most proper way of setting it up in a working game. So I'll walk you through that here. Let's go ahead and bring up that level. I called this one Gus. All right, excellent. So you can see this is kind of that starting sample scene here that we've looked at in past years for digital media and that. And I've got my robot boy character in here. And also, in addition to that, I have a kill zone that goes all the way across the bottom here. I also have checkpoint 1, which is right here. Just took a crate and made it a little oblong, okay? And then I have checkpoint 2, which is somewhere over here. There it is, okay? And the idea is whichever checkpoint that I get to, when I interact with the kill zone, that kill zone will automatically be updated to the last checkpoint transform. That way, as I run along a level, if I fall apart right away in the level and I fall through the kill zone, I go right back to the first checkpoint. If I'm running along in the level and then I fall, I go back to that second checkpoint. And you can create the checkpoints wherever you want so that you come back in at those proper intervals. So this is kind of what it looks like. And I think this is something that'll be usable for pretty much everybody. So hopefully you can use this resource here. I want to run to the other far side of all this. And, oh, right now, we'll just do this. Let me hop out of here. I'm just going to drop down into the kill zone, and you'll see I come back in exactly where I started the level at. I haven't hit a checkpoint yet. Now, I'm going to jump over here for sake of time, hit this checkpoint, make sure that I make contact with it. It's an on trigger enter. So I drop down here. And now I drop down, and boom. he comes back in at that checkpoint. Pretty slick. Now, we make our way across the stage. And I drop down on this checkpoint, on trigger enter again. Run all the way back over to get to my kill zone. And drop down, and voila, we're back to that one. Okay, and you can see all those times, it didn't reset my scene. It just destroyed my character and respawned them at that new checkpoint. And I think that's what we really want to like focus on here, is how that process works. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of all that. I have my character, and on my character, let's start with this actually. Here's the first one that's of big importance. Gus talked about his character. Once it was destroyed, it was coming back, and it didn't have anything on it. Like the character was all busted, like half the scripts were missing and all that. This is a way around that. So I created what empty object that I called Game Master. Okay, and I just centered that 0, 0, 0, and then on that Game Master object, I have the Game Master script. Now the Game Master script basically tracks your last checkpoint. Okay, so wherever it was. Now this X and Y, this is the important part, and this is what I messed up on a lot to begin with. This first coordinate that's in here is actually your starting coordinate for your character. Okay, that's the first, or rather last checkpoint that was in there. So all I did is I went to my character, and I went to their transform, and I took that X and Y from my character, from my player, and I copied that X and Y into those coordinates on the Game Master. So I just copied the 17.268, copied that, pasted it over to Game Master, came back, got the Y, pasted that. And that's probably the easiest way to do that. Now, the Game Master is all set up at that point. That is one of the scripts that I will include on Schoology, so you can grab that. Now, after the Game Master, we got to create the checkpoints. So all I did is whatever sprite you want, you're going to drag that into your scene. So in this case, I grabbed, let's go to checkpoint 2 since we're looking right at it. I grabbed the crate, and I dragged that in here, and then all I did was in the sprite renderer for the crates is I switched the colors. But the main important thing is I've got two things on here that really interact with my character and are really important. One, I've got a box collider on the checkpoint that is set to trigger. Okay, I'm not actually making a physical collision with this. I'm triggering an event. Okay, and so I've got that. And then the second part is I have the checkpoint script. Now the checkpoint script is going to make a reference to the Game Master. And what it does is it takes the new XY of this checkpoint and it updates it to the Game Master. So when I on trigger enter on this checkpoint, it automatically sends that X and Y over to the Game Master and updates it. Okay, so the checkpoint script is the second script that is included in there. So Game Master and then checkpoint script. And you can see I had to physically like drag in that Game Master object. So I had to go over to the hierarchy, grab that, and drag that in here. Okay, so that it's all connected up. All right, now, next component of all this. We have our Game Master, our checkpoints, and from here, I created on the kill zone, okay, I have this restarter script. Now, this restarter script was originally on here, but I did some things to it to actually make it update according to the Game Master. Now, I know a lot of you were using the kill zone that was related to the practice 2D platformer game, and then it had some like spawning things, spawning events that were in there, and it was very like script heavy. Like there were loads of scripts. I mean, like not 4 scripts, more like 8 scripts that it was working with. So I kind of simplified that down into one script here to make it a little bit easier. But you can see same thing on the kill zone. It's a trigger. And you can also see that aside from being a trigger, we've got the restarter script on here. And you had to drag your player in here. And then you had to drag the Game Master object in here so that we can make that reference to the script. Okay. Now, once I've got that, that's script 3. That's all set up there. Anytime I make contact with that kill zone, it'll go back to whatever the last checkpoint was. If I didn't get to a checkpoint, it'll go to that starting position. And that's how that one works. Pretty simple. Now, the last thing, which is really important, is our player position. and I believe that is right on our character. And that makes another reference to the Game Master. And this one is the most important one for the start of the scene. So anytime the scene reloads, it comes to the player position script and it gets that transform and sets it to the Game Master, and that's how the scene will start. So if you have a kill zone that is resetting the scene, like reloading it each time, that's what's going on here. Now that's basically what I've got. When it hits the kill zone, reloads the scene, and then it updates that transform. And again, you can see I had to drag the Game Master thing in here, and it's right on my player. You can put this anywhere on the player, but important that you've got that on there. So now everything between the player position at the start of the scene, the checkpoint, and the Game Master, and the kill zone, all those things are speaking to that Game Master script, making updates going back and forth. Okay, that's pretty much the setup for all that. I don't think I need to get into too many more details. I promise as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to update that on Schoology. Okay, so that we've got that. To answer one questions, what do I do? Okay, so Dawson had a quick question here. It's related to editor. Says my Unity says no editor. What do I do? The idea is that we should have Virtual Studio as our editor. So Dawson, what I would do if I were you is see if you've got Virtual Studio first off. So I'd hop into your applications, and inside of your applications here, I would go in and scroll down and look for Virtual Studio, or Visual Studio, my bad. I've been saying Virtual Studio. Too much virtual learning going on here. So we've got Visual Studio. See if you've got that. That would be the starting point. If you've got that, then you're in a good place, because all you have to do is go into the preferences of Unity and make sure that it is actually seeing your Visual Studio. If you don't have that, then chances are you still have one of the other programs, Atom, or if not Atom, Dreamweaver. Any of those are both available on the self-service right now. You can grab those as well. And just as a quick reminder, if I hop over to Unity, I go into Unity, go to the preferences, and then in the preferences, we've got some external tools. And let me bring this over and zoom in, sorry. Okay, so again, I'm in Unity preferences. I went to external tools. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that my external script editor is actually selected here. Now, if yours says like mono or anything like that, then you'll want to change it so it says Visual Studio as long as that's downloaded. If you want to use another one, you can always browse, and then you can use those other editors that are in there. So if I browse at this point, I can probably, if I've got Dreamweaver, I could probably head over there. I can use that one if I wanted. Okay. If I've got Atom, let me see if I got Atom on this machine. It doesn't look like I do. But again, that's on self-service. You can grab either one of these on there, set it as your default, and then every time you go in there, it'll be updated. It gives you all the nice color coding just like before, and it'll be just like Visual Studio. So you should be all set there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I believe that's it for game design, which takes me over to video production. And let's see here. Thank you for that. TurboAx. Oh, thank you. Good. I'm getting spammed by people. It's great. Austin doing all right. Excellent. So we're all set there. Moving on. I'm going to go ahead and close this and minimize that and close that. And let's go ahead and switch over to video production here. All right, and in video production, the big thing is you're going to continue to collect shots for your cooking video. Now, one resource that I would show you in here is that in your coursework on Schoology, which we're not used to going there for video production, head on over to that course, video production, and then you can see in here, let's make this full screen. You can see in here that I've now got a folder for Cooking 101. And that there are some examples of different videos in here. I think the big thing for this cooking video before you start shooting or getting a lot of content for it, again, we're using our cell phones for this. Go ahead and keep it simple. Just focus on looking at a lot of these different examples so that you can set the shots up ahead of time. If you're going to do things like compress the time of your edit, so like being able to jump from part 1 to part 2, part 3, part 4, if you've got something repetitive, like on the Mexican casserole that you saw the video for yesterday, you could tell that laying in all those different layers of the corn tortilla, if I don't take my hand all the way out of the shot in between each one of those pieces, it's hard to like skip forward and cut through that. So I would need to know that I want to do that ahead of time so that I can plan for it when I'm doing all of the shooting. And a lot of it is just patience. Like the big trick is a lot of times don't move whatever it is that you're working with. If you're in a mixing bowl, the mixing bowl stays put every time. The camera is exactly the same angle every time. That way you don't have a mixing bowl that shifts this way and then this way and this way and this way. And there were times that the frying pan that I was using, the skillet, that was moving. Okay, and so the cast iron pan was over here, and then it was over here, and then it was over there. Those were things that if I would have been a little bit more careful, I might have marked that on my camera screen so that I can say, hey, or take a screenshot of it and get it all kind of lined up exactly the same way the next time. And that's just a little bit of the planning that goes into the actual creation of that video. So your job is still the same. Collect clips, get as many clips as you can. Coming back Monday after spring break, we'll talk about Adobe Premiere, and we'll start taking those clips in there, and we'll start editing. Nobody is to touch iMovie with any of their clips. Please, your video production class, you should not be in iMovie. Okay, that being said, we're going to head on over to Digital Media One. And Digital Media One, if we take a look at your course starting off, since we're right here, I hop in here, and you can see that we've got a Photoshop unit, Virtual Academy, and then in that Photoshop unit here, we will be uploading files for our actual tutorials here. There's an overall deadline for that, which I'll go through in a little bit here. Let me hop out. Some to-dos and don'ts on this. We talked about screen capturing yesterday. Let me switch up my text. Boom. And with screen capturing, we talked about making sure that we're zoomed in on the objects, making sure that we've got clear things. Audio is a big part of it. Now, if you don't record with audio, there is a way to do that after the fact. But now that you've been doing that screen recording of all those different steps of your new Photoshop skill, what you're going to do is, with that Photoshop skill, you're going to start editing those. Now, you don't have Final Cut Pro on your laptops, and we're not ready for Adobe Premiere, so we're going to hop into iMovie, and you're going to edit with that. Now, iMovie is on self-service. It's probably already on your laptop. You've probably already used it for other projects, so I'm comfortable in saying that you probably know what's going on there. Here's a quick example. I'm going to hop over to this. Okay, and then here's iMovie all set up, and I dragged in one of the things that I created for yesterday. And I dragged it in here, imported it, and then I put it down into the timeline after creating a new project. And you can see I can scroll through this, and iMovie is surprisingly looking more and more like Final Cut Pro, or vice versa. And you can see I can edit through all this stuff. If I need to stretch this out more to get more detailed, I can come up to the magnifier here, and I can slide that up to magnify it more. And you can see it gets right into the details of everything now. Or I can take that and I can compress it down so that it's a little bit easier to work with that timeline. And then if I go all the way down, you can see there's that whole video all in one little chunk, and that's going to be challenging to work with. Now if I come in here, I can click in any of these different places, and I can modify, and I can split the clip with Command B. Okay, that's the first thing that you might want to do. Now, keep in mind, if you recorded the audio while you recorded the screen capture, you are going to be cutting the audio as well. So that's something to be aware of. I think let's see if we can actually do this. I'm not even sure if you can in iMovie. So I'm going to split the clip here, and then I'm going to split the clip over here where it looks like I'm done talking. select the middle part, right click on it, and yes, I can detach the audio here. So now I've got the audio separate, which means that I can move it around to retime it if I need to. Or if I want to trim some of this stuff, you can see how it's trimming the video but not the audio. So that's another little strategy that you can use with this. And then the nice thing about iMovie is you've got the yellow line, the snapping tool, so you can tell when things are exactly lined up, which is really helpful. Last thing is you're creating a tutorial. If you've got a shot that is not exactly showing what it should be showing, you can always select that clip of whatever it is. Like, for instance, on this clip, it seems like the main thing that I really want to see is this little window here. I would want to like get in here, see that window a little bit clearer. So probably a big thing in here is I'd have to transform it. And it's been a while since I've been in here. So let's come in. That clip is selected. Transitions. Let's go through here. Skin tones, color, cropping, crop to fill. I could probably do that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Audio. Oh, don't hang up on me here, iMovie. Okay. Clip filter, information. Probably gotta use that cropping one and go crop to fill. And now I can probably come in here and change what it is that I want to focus on. And then once I get that zoomed in, now you got to be careful. If you zoom too much, of course, you're going to lose some of your resolution. Once I get that, I should be all good there. I'm going to hit enter to see if it accepts that. There it is. So that's a quick way to kind of transform in a little bit closer on some of the stuff that has details, like your layers or some of the different tools that you're using. And then you can cut that so that it looks like this, so it's easy to access during that time. And now I can see all those details. Now, one other thing on the tutorial that I would remind you of, it is a tutorial. It'd be good to know exactly what it is that we're working on. So getting some titling in here is going to be important. If you've never used iMovie, we've got the titles at the top. You can click on that tab right here. You've got a whole variety of different things. I can drag this title right down in here. So let's grab, let's say I want to do this organic lower third. Oh, that's hideous, but we're going to grab it. I'm going to put that right over the top of my video. Okay, and once that's down here, you can see there's the lower third. With the lower third selected, I can come in here. I can double click in here and I can type. Okay. So let's just go title. All right. And then I can update that with different things. If there's like special keys that I have to hit, like if I have to hit Command T to transform, if I have to hit hold Shift to transform something, any of those different quick keys that are in Photoshop, this is a great way to add those on too. Okay, and pick titles that aren't distracting but look like they're part of the presentation. And of course, at the very beginning, I should probably, in all of this, make sure that I have something that leads into the whole thing, like introducing whatever the skill is that's being taught. Today we're going to take a look at the splatter effect or diffusion or whatever the skill is. Okay, and that should pretty much wrap it up. There is going to be an assignment that's posted on Schoology for that, so make sure you take a look there so that it's all updated. You know exactly what you're doing. It's going to be due by the Sunday, by midnight Sunday of spring break. So at the very end of spring break here, you'll be able to put something on there and upload it. It will be the actual video file. If for some reason it gives you a hard time with that video file, you can use the technique that was referenced yesterday's video. Upload to Google Drive first, and then just get the link, the share link, and then paste that into the assignment so you can turn it in that way. That way, if your file is way too big to upload to Schoology, that's our workaround for that. But I'm going to take a moment here and take a look to see if there's any other questions that are of value or that I can answer quickly. And let's see here. Turbocharge. Thank you for this. Okay. All right, it looks like we've got pretty much everything covered. If you have any additional questions to anything, make sure that you just drop me a line here on Schoology, and then I'll be able to get back to you on that. And that should pretty much wrap it up here. Thanks for joining us for another episode. And that was actually the full hour. That was kind of crazy. All right, 10 o'clock. We're off. We're out of here. See ya. Bye.